At 82 years old, you have a lot of time to think. You think about the life you lived, the choices you made, and the moments that quietly shaped everything that came after. I've had many years filled with love, mistakes, lessons, and memories I wouldn't trade for anything. But if I'm being honest with you, there is one decision I made later in life that I deeply regret. That decision was moving into a nursing home. At the time, it felt like the sensible thing to do. My family encouraged it. They told me it would be safer, that I would help whenever I needed it, that I wouldn't have to worry about cooking, cleaning, or being alone. They promised comfort. They promised peace of mind. And because they loved me, and because I didn't want to be a burden, I believed them. Maybe you're watching this right now because you're thinking about a nursing home for yourself. Or maybe you're considering it for a parent or a loved one. You might be telling yourself it's the responsible choice, the safest choice, the easiest solution to a difficult stage of life. That's exactly what I thought too. But what I didn't understand then, and what I wish someone had told me, is that life in a nursing home changes everything. And once you move in, getting out isn't as simple as people make it sound. Today, I want to share 6 hard truths I learned the hard way. These are things no brochure tells you, things families rarely talk about, and things that can quietly reshape your life before you even realize what's happening. Please stay with me until the end, because some of these lessons may surprise you. And if you know someone who is considering a nursing home, this may be exactly what they need to hear before making a life-changing decision. Let me start with the first regret, one that hit me almost immediately. Regret 1, losing my independence. The biggest shock after moving into a nursing home wasn't the size of the room. It wasn't the unfamiliar faces, the long hallways, or even the constant noise. What shook me the most was the realization that I was no longer in control of my own life. Before I moved in, I had my own routines. I decided when I woke up. I chose when I ate. I could step outside for fresh air whenever I felt like it. If I wanted to sit quietly with a book in my favorite chair for an hour, I could. If I wanted to cook something simple, even just a cup of tea exactly the way I liked it, that choice was mine. Inside the nursing home, I quickly learned that my time was no longer my own. Breakfast was served at a set hour, whether I was hungry or not. Lights went out at a certain time, whether I was tired or wide awake. If I wanted to take a walk outside, I often had to wait. Sometimes for permission, sometimes for someone to be available to help. Simple decisions I had made effortlessly for decades suddenly felt like privileges that could be delayed or denied. I remember my first week there very clearly. I woke up early one morning out of habit. I sat up in the bed and reached for the book I had been reading at home. For a moment, everything felt normal. Then I looked around the room. The walls were bare. The furniture wasn't mine. The bed didn't feel like my bed. My favorite chair, the one I had spent years sitting in, was gone. The small comforts I collected over a lifetime were nowhere to be seen. In their place was a sterile room that felt more like a temporary stop than a home. That was the moment it truly sank in. I wasn't just in a new place. I had handed over control of my daily life. The hardest part wasn't adjusting to the rules. It was realizing that once you give up your independence, getting it back is incredibly difficult. Over time, you stop arguing. You stop asking why things have to be done a certain way. You learn to fit into the system because resisting it is exhausting. And little by little, you begin to lose pieces of yourself. If you're considering a nursing home, I want you to ask yourself something honestly. Are you ready to give up the small freedoms that make life feel like your own? Because once they're gone, you don't miss them right away. But when you do, the weight of that loss is heavier than you might imagine. Regret 2, feeling forgotten. Another truth that took time to reveal itself was loneliness. When I first moved in, my family reassured me that they would visit often. And in the beginning, they did. My daughter came by regularly. My grandchildren visited on weekends. For a while, it felt like I was still connected to the life I had left behind. But as weeks turned into months, something slowly changed. Visits became shorter, then less frequent. My daughter started calling instead of coming by. My grandchildren became busy with school, work, and their own lives. Holidays were the hardest. Promises were made, "We'll come see you soon," but plans often change at the last minute. I spent many afternoons sitting in the common room, watching other residents glance toward the door whenever it opened. You could see the same hope flicker across their faces. Maybe today would be the day someone came just for them. It wasn't that my family stopped loving me. Life simply moved on without me. When you're no longer part of someone's daily routine, it becomes easier for them to assume you're fine, that you're being taken care of, that you don't need as much attention as before. I remember one evening sitting alone in my room, holding my phone in my hand. I thought about calling my son. I wanted to hear his voice, but I hesitated. I didn't want to be a burden. I didn't want to remind him that I was waiting. So I put the phone down, and that was when it truly hit me. This was my life now, waiting quietly, hoping to be remembered. If you're thinking about moving into a nursing home, ask yourself if you're prepared for this kind of loneliness. Because no matter how much your family cares, once you're out of sight, it becomes easier than you think to slip out of mind. If you're still watching this video and finding these insights meaningful, please comment number 1 below to let me know you're here. And if you haven't subscribed yet, I encourage you to subscribe and turn on the bell so you don't miss future videos. This community exists so none of us has to feel invisible. Now, let's move forward, because the next regret was one I never saw coming. After a while, you start to realize that the biggest changes in a nursing home don't happen all at once. They happen slowly. So slowly, in fact, that you often don't notice them until something important is already gone. That's what made the next 2 regrets especially painful. Because by the time I understood them, they were already shaping my days. Regret 3, losing my sense of purpose. When I moved into the nursing home, I thought I was only changing where I lived. I didn't realize I was also changing why I lived. Back at home, my days had meaning, even if they looked ordinary from the outside. I had small responsibilities. I watered my plants. I made my own coffee each morning. I kept my space tidy in my own way. I decided how my day would unfold, even if it was slow and quiet. Those little routines gave me a reason to get out of bed. Inside the nursing home, those rituals disappeared almost overnight. Meals were prepared for me. Cleaning was handled by staff. Even the smallest tasks I used to take pride in were no longer mine to do. At first, I told myself it was a relief. I thought, maybe this is what rest is supposed to feel like. After a lifetime of responsibility, maybe I had earned the right to simply relax. But after a few weeks, something didn't feel right. The days felt long, too long. Time stretched in a way I wasn't used to. I found myself watching the clock, waiting for meals, waiting for activities, waiting for bedtime. Waiting became the main event of the day. I noticed it wasn't just happening to me. I saw it in other residents as well. People who had once lived full, active lives now spent hours sitting quietly, staring into space, as if they were simply passing time instead of living it. There was a man named George, 84 years old, who had been a carpenter his entire life. Back home, he was always fixing something, building shelves, repairing cabinets, creating with his hands. In the nursing home, there were no tools, no projects, nothing that needed his skills. I watched George slowly change. His hands, once strong and confident, rested idle in his lap. One afternoon, he looked at me and said quietly, "I don't feel useful anymore." That sentence stayed with me. When you no longer have something to care for, something to contribute, something that makes you feel needed, life starts to lose its shape. The mind slows down, the body follows, and before you know it, you start to feel like just another resident. Another person filling a chair or room where time keeps moving, but nothing really changes. If you're considering a nursing home, ask yourself this: what gives your life meaning right now? Because once you move in, finding purpose isn't as simple as filling your time. It takes effort, intention, and sometimes a fight to hold on to things that make you feel alive. Regret 4, declining health faster than expected. Before I moved into the nursing home, I was doing fairly well for my age. I wasn't running marathons, but I could take care of myself. I walked regularly. I cooked my own meals. I moved around my home throughout the day without thinking much about it. Those small movements mattered more than I ever realized. Once I moved in, everything became easier. Meals were brought to me. If I needed something, I could press a button and someone would come help. I didn't have to stand in the kitchen. I didn't have to walk as far. I didn't have to push myself. At first, it felt like a kindness. But what I didn't understand was that the less I did for myself, the weaker I became. I moved less without noticing it. I sat more than I used to, and slowly my body began to change. My legs felt stiffer. Getting up from a chair took more effort. Movements that once felt natural started to feel heavy. The strength I had spent years maintaining seemed to disappear far faster than I expected. Again, it wasn't just me. I saw it happening all around me. People who walked into the nursing home on their own 2 feet were suddenly relying on walkers, then wheelchairs. People who had once been independent started needing help with things they had never struggled with before. There was a woman named Alice, 81 years old, who arrived full of energy. She used to take daily walks around the facility, insisting she wasn't going to slow down just because of a number. For a while, she kept that promise to herself. But as time went on, I noticed her walking less. Then she started using a walker. Eventually, she was in a wheelchair. One day she looked at me and said, "I don't know what happened, but I feel like I aged 10 years in just a few months." That's exactly how it felt. In a place designed to make life easier, it's easy to forget that movement isn't just about convenience. It's about survival. When you stop using your body the way you once did, it doesn't wait patiently for you to start again. It adapts to inactivity. If I had known how quickly my strength would fade, I would have fought harder to stay active. I would have pushed myself to walk more, to stand more, to move even when it felt easier not to. Because once you've slowed down enough, getting back up isn't nearly as easy as it sounds. If you're thinking about a nursing home, ask yourself whether you'll still have the motivation to keep your body strong when everything around you encourages comfort and stillness. Because comfort can quietly cost you your health. If you're still watching this video and finding these insights valuable, please comment number 4 below to let me know you're here. And if you haven't subscribed yet, I invite you to subscribe and turn on the bell so you don't miss future videos. Your support helps us continue creating content that informs, supports, and reminds us that we're not alone in these conversations. Now, let's move forward, because the next regret has less to do with the body and more to do with something just as important: dignity. By the time you reach this stage of life, you've already learned that aging comes with losses. You expect some of them: slower mornings, a body that needs more care, a world that moves a little faster than you do. What I wasn't prepared for was how much of myself I would have to give up, not because of age, but because of where I chose to live. That realization came fully into focus with the next regret. Regret 5, the loss of privacy and dignity. Before I moved into the nursing home, privacy was something I never thought about. It was simply part of life. I could close my door when I wanted. I could sit in silence. I could take my time getting dressed, moving through my day at my own pace, without feeling watched. In a nursing home, privacy becomes something you have to negotiate. From the moment I arrived, I noticed how often staff came in and out of my room. Room checks, medication schedules, routine visits. I understood they were doing their jobs, and I never doubted their intentions. But even so, it was difficult to adjust to the feeling that my personal space was no longer entirely mine. Simple things changed. Taking a shower often meant waiting until someone was available to help. Using the restroom sometimes required pressing a call button and hoping help would come quickly. Getting dressed, something I had done independently my entire life, suddenly felt like a task that required assistance, supervision, or scheduling. Each time I needed help with something deeply personal, a small part of my dignity slipped away. Then there were the shared spaces. Not everyone get a private room, and sharing a space with someone you didn't choose can be challenging. I was fortunate to have a kind roommate, but I heard many stories from others. Loud nights, interrupted sleep, confusion, moments where personal boundaries blurred because illness doesn't respect privacy. Even when you try to make your room feel like home, it never truly belongs to you. You can add photos, a blanket, a few personal items, but the room still feels temporary, like a place you're borrowing rather than living in. What hurt the most wasn't the lack of comfort. It was a gradual shift in how I was seen. Conversations became more clinical. Instructions replaced requests. Decisions were made around me instead of with me. Over time, I began to feel less like a person and more like a patient. Dignity is a quiet thing. You don't notice it much when it's intact, but when it starts to erode, you feel the loss deeply. If you're considering a nursing home, ask yourself whether you're ready to give up a level of privacy and personal control you've had your entire life. Because once it's gone, reclaiming it is far harder than you might expect. Regret 6. Realizing it's harder to leave than you think. When I first moved into the nursing home, I told myself it was temporary. I thought I would try it for a while, see how things went, and make a decision later. That belief gave me comfort. It made the move feel less final. What I didn't understand was how quickly temporary can turn into permanent. While I was settling into life at the facility, my life outside continued to change. My home sat empty. Maintaining it from a distance became difficult. My children began making practical decisions, selling items they thought I no longer needed, discussing future plans for the house. None of it was done with bad intentions. It was simply what made sense to them. When I brought up the idea of returning home, the response was hesitant. Are you sure you can manage on your own? Wouldn't it be safer to stay where you are? We just want what's best for you. Their concern came from love, but planted doubt in my mind, and that doubt mattered. Because by then, I wasn't as strong as I used to be. Months of living in a place where I didn't have to cook, clean, or walk very far had taken a toll. The independence I once had was slipping away, and with it, my confidence. The idea of managing life on my own again began to feel intimidating. I met others who had the same experience. Many of them entered the nursing home, believing they had options. Over time, those options quietly disappeared. Their homes were sold. Their savings were drained by the cost of care. Their health declined just enough to make leaving feel impossible. That's the part no one talks about. Moving into a nursing home feels like a decision you can reverse. But for many people, it isn't. The longer you stay, the harder it becomes to imagine life outside. The outside world starts to feel distant, unfamiliar, almost unreal. Before you realize it, the nursing home becomes your whole world. If you're thinking about making this move, I urge you to ask yourself an important question. Are you prepared for the possibility that once you go in, leaving may not be as simple as you expect? Because the barriers, financial, physical, and emotional, can grow quietly without warning. Final thoughts. Looking back, I don't regret growing older. Aging is a privilege not everyone gets. But I do regret believing that a nursing home was my only option. I walked in expecting comfort, safety, and a better quality of life. What I found instead was a world that slowly took away my independence, my privacy, my purpose, and parts of my identity I didn't even realize I was surrendering. That doesn't mean nursing homes are always the wrong choice. Some people truly need the level of care they provide, but too often, the decision is made out of fear, convenience, or pressure, without fully understanding the cost. If I could do it over again, I would have fought harder to stay in my own home. I would have explored every alternative. I would have made sure that giving up my freedom was absolutely necessary before making such a permanent move. If you're facing this decision now, I hope you take the time to reflect. Ask yourself whether this choice is truly what's best for you, or whether it simply feels like the easiest solution right now. The life you have today, with all its routines, choices, and quiet freedoms, is worth holding on to for as long as you can. Thank you for spending this time with us. We would love to hear from you. Please leave a comment below and share one thing you learned today, or one thought this video brought to mind. Your experiences and reflections matter, and reading your comments reminds others that they're not alone. If you found this video helpful, please like, subscribe, and share it with someone who may need to hear it. Your support allows us to continue creating content that informs, encourages, and honors the wisdom that comes with age. Thank you for watching, and we look forward to seeing you in the next video here at Elders Soul Journal.